Few school punishments are as controversial or as deeply rooted in history as corporal punishment. For centuries, teachers in classrooms across the globe were allowed, even expected, to discipline students with physical force.
Sit, darling.
Yes, sir.
The idea was simple. Pain would lead to obedience, and obedience would lead to order. But in recent decades, that philosophy has been increasingly questioned. What once seemed normal is now seen by many as outdated, harmful, and even abusive. And yet, corporal punishment in schools hasn't disappeared. In dozens of countries, it's still legal and still practiced. What exactly is corporal punishment in schools? Corporal punishment in schools refers to the deliberate use of physical force to discipline students. It's typically applied to the buttocks or hands using tools like canes, paddles, belts, slippers, straps, or rulers. In younger children, especially in kindergarten or primary school, it might also involve a slap with the open hand. The term comes from the Latin corpus, meaning body, highlighting that the punishment is physical by nature. While the practice may seem outdated to some, it was once a widespread method of enforcing order in classrooms across the globe. In some regions, it remains legal and actively used, especially in parts of Africa, Asia, and the southern United States. The purpose has always been the same: to correct behavior and establish authority. Why was physical punishment allowed in schools? In many countries, corporal punishment in schools was supported by a legal principle known as in loco parentis, Latin for in place of the parent. This doctrine gave teachers the right to discipline children as if they were the child's guardian. It originated in English common law in the 18th century and spread throughout British-influenced school systems. In practice, this meant that if a student broke a rule, a teacher could strike them, often without parental consent. Especially in England and other English-speaking countries, this was a formal process, sometimes involving school logs to record each punishment. It was seen as a necessary part of education, instilling discipline, respect, and moral order. What tools were commonly used to punish students? The choice of implement varied by country, school, and time period. Some of the most commonly used tools included the cane, a thin rattan rod, popular in British and colonial schools, applied to the hands or buttocks, often in front of classmates. The strap or tawse, thick leather straps with split ends, widely used in Scotland and parts of Canada, typically applied to the palm of the hand. The paddle, a flat wooden board used extensively in the US, especially in southern states, delivered over clothing on the buttocks. The slipper or plimsoll, a gym shoe used mostly in England, usually by prefects or teachers for minor misbehaviors. The ruler or yardstick, a more improvised tool often used in classrooms in China, India, and the Middle East. The hand. In primary schools or more informal settings, spanking or slapping with an open hand was common. These punishments could range from one strike to a formal session of multiple strokes, depending on the offense and local custom. How widespread was corporal punishment around the world? Until the late 20th century, corporal punishment in schools was the norm in most countries. However, things began to shift as research emerged about the psychological and emotional effects on children. Today, over 128 countries have banned corporal punishment in schools, including most of Europe, South America, and East Asia. Yet in at least 69 countries, the practice remains legal, either nationally or in specific regions. In these places, physical discipline is often culturally or institutionally accepted, particularly as a means to uphold respect and order in the classroom. Some notable examples: United States, legal in 17 states, mostly in the South. In 2008, over 216,000 students were paddled in public schools. The practice continues in some rural areas, often with parental consent forms. England, banned in state schools in 1987, and private schools by 1998, but remains a key historical influence on the global use of caning. China, banned since 1986, though still reported, especially in rural areas where enforcement is weak and traditional norms persist. India, officially banned, but still prevalent in rural communities. Teachers may use rulers, sticks, or even slap students for disobedience. Singapore and Malaysia. Corporal punishment is legal, formal, and often delivered with a rattan cane, especially for boys. In Singapore, caning is carried out only by senior staff and often in front of the class. Middle Eastern countries, in some, such as Saudi Arabia, corporal punishment by teachers or religious leaders is culturally accepted. The use of a stick, hand, or belt is not uncommon, and punishment can be linked to both academic behavior and moral conduct. Nigeria. Physical discipline is widespread in both schools and religious institutions. Students may be caned, whipped, or asked to kneel for long periods. These examples show that corporal punishment remains deeply embedded in educational systems where authority, tradition, and discipline are closely intertwined. What were the effects on students? While defenders argue that corporal punishment builds character and teaches respect, evidence shows otherwise. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, students who are physically punished are more likely to exhibit increased aggression, lower academic performance, school avoidance, anxiety and depression, poor self-esteem, retaliation or violent behavior. Medical associations around the world, such as the American Psychological Association, Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health, and Canadian Pediatric Society, have issued strong statements opposing all forms of corporal punishment in schools. Are there still defenders of corporal punishment in education? Yes. In many countries where corporal punishment remains legal, cultural and religious traditions continue to support it. Some educators believe it's necessary to maintain order in large or underfunded classrooms. Others argue that it's part of traditional parenting or school discipline values. In a 1986 survey, 84% of US adults said children sometimes need a good spanking. In the UK, a 2008 poll showed that 22% of secondary school teachers still supported corporal punishment in extreme cases. Despite these beliefs, there is little evidence that it actually improves behavior or academic outcomes. What do human rights organizations say? Corporal punishment in schools is now widely recognized as a violation of children's rights. Organizations like the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, the Council of Europe, and the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child all argue that children should never be subject to physical violence, especially not in educational institutions. They stress that discipline can and should be maintained through respect, communication, and appropriate boundaries, not fear or physical pain. What do you think about corporal punishment in schools? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you'd like to learn more about punishment worldwide and throughout the ages, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.